Welcome back. Well, have you ever thought about being on a grand jury? Well, here's your opportunity, and there's really not that many requirements, but you can find out all about it. And our guest today, Judge Charles Marginis, did I pronounce that right?
You did, yes.
I did. And nice to have you back. You've been on
Thank you.
before talking about this.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back and to have an opportunity to speak to your listeners about becoming a grand juror.
Well, tell us first, what does the grand jury do, what it's about, and what level of detail do they go into?
Very good, thank you. The grand jury is composed of 19 citizens of our community, and broadly speaking, they handle two types of matters, criminal and civil. On the criminal side, the grand jury receives evidence and determines whether or not to issue an indictment charging people with one or more felony crimes. On the civil side, the grand jury is an independent public watchdog. It makes inquiries into the county government, the local governments within Orange County, and government agencies within the county to see if they are operating efficiently and within the confines of the law. Those inquiries can blossom into full-blown investigations, and thereafter the grand jury prepares a report with its findings and recommendations. By law, the report must be given to the agency involved, which then, by law, has so many days to respond to the report. If I could add,
sure.
The grand jury also has the ability to investigate public officials for malfeasance, such as corruption in office, a violation of the public trust, and the like. And if they find cause to refer the matter to the district attorney's office for possible criminal investigation, they certainly can do so.
Who initiates when a certain trial or certain event, whether it's a criminal, goes to the grand jury? And obviously, I'm bringing that up. We don't need to go in. You know, all that happening in Kansas and all Kansas City or St. Louis, actually. But it brought up the question of when is something given over to the grand jury and when isn't? Who decides that?
Very good. The short answer is the prosecution. The district attorney's office decides whether to file charges against someone for felony crimes by way of a complaint or to go to the grand jury for an indictment. The great majority of felony prosecutions commence with the filing of a complaint. Probably 2% or fewer of criminal prosecutions begin with a grand jury indictment. There are a number of reasons why a district attorney will choose to go to the grand jury and seek an indictment as opposed to filing a complaint. And those reasons have to do with the secrecy of the grand jury and the fact that only the district attorney can appear along with his or her witnesses in the grand jury. So for example, a complaint, which is how most felony prosecutions begin, is a public document. And sometimes the district attorney fears that if a defendant learns that a complaint has been filed against him or her, they may flee the jurisdiction. In that case, they'll go to the grand jury where proceedings are held in secret and the indictment issues without the defendant ever knowing about it. Sometimes there's a concern that the prosecution witnesses may be intimidated by the defendant if he or she learns their identities, which they will if the prosecution begins by way of the complaint, because then the attorney for the defendant gets the police report with the names of the witnesses and what they had to say. So that's another reason. Sometimes you've got children as witnesses, and if the matter proceeds by way of a complaint, there is a preliminary hearing where the defendant is there facing the accuser. The lawyer for the defendant can ask the child questions. That may be intimidating, and so the DA would probably go to the grand jury and get an indictment where the child testifies in a much more friendly atmosphere. Sometimes there's a concern that the statute of limitations is about to run, and an indictment can be obtained much quicker than a preliminary hearing, which takes several days to tee up. There are other reasons, but those are the primary ones. And you know, going back to the Ferguson issue that you alluded to, sometimes the DA looks at the evidence that the police has given him or her and says, this is a close case. I don't know if it's good enough to go forward. Let me run it by a grand jury. These are citizens of the community. These are the people who are going to be petty jurors, as we call them, trial jurors. Let's see what they think.
What is the obligation to someone who is on the grand jury? Are they looking at having to go up to Santa Ana 20 hours a week, 40 hours?
Yep. Okay.
That's, I think probably the number one question someone has is going to be, how much of my time needs to be invested? What's my commitment?
Okay. Your commitment is essentially as a full-time job for a year, beginning on July 1st, 2015 through June 30th of 2016. It's not 40 hours a week, but it's over 20 on average.
Okay.
The grand jury sets its own agenda and allocates its time accordingly, but it tends to be probably around 4.5 days a week, although not 8-hour days. Again, it's up to the grand jurors to make that decision.
And it's up in Santa Ana, am I right?
Yes,
in the main courthouse?
Yes, in the main courthouse in Santa Ana.
And you know, I'm looking over the requirements here, and I don't know if there's more than that are listed, but it basically says if you're 18 years or older, a U.S. citizen, an OC resident, and fluent in English.
Those are the statutory requirements, okay? But in addition, we look for people who don't have agendas, who can work cooperatively with other people, because you don't work by yourself as a grand juror. You work with the others in a committee or a subcommittee. We also look for people who are bright, who can conduct investigations, who can analyze facts, and who can use a computer, especially the word processing program, because a lot of the work involves writing reports.
Interesting. Yeah. Once an indictment is given, it then goes to a standard trial, correct?
It can.
A standard jury, or it just depends?
The indictment
like given
results,
out by the grand jury. Okay.
Well, okay, you bypass the preliminary hearing stage, you appear for an arraignment on the indictment, and thereafter you can settle the case at any time, or if the case doesn't settle and it's not dismissed, then yes, there's a trial.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what we would call a regular jury would take over. The application deadline, even though their term doesn't start until July, is January 23rd. And to get that, they can go online. Can they fill out an online application or download it?
Yes, they can. The website is ocgrandjury.org, or they can call us. And I think you have a phone number.
657-622-6747. And that's the one that's on your flyer.
Okay, yeah,
All
that's
right.
fine. That's the one, yes.
Yeah. It sounds like it could be very rewarding. And it's a one-year term, am I right?
It is a one-year term, and you get, on average, 2 weeks off a year, one around the end of the year for the holidays and one for spring break. Although sometimes other days off are given, and of course they don't work on court holidays. Like I said, I want people to go into it with eyes wide open. It is a full-time job for probably less than minimum wage, so they're not salaried employees. We call the $50 a day they get a stipend. Yeah.
But I can see where it can be very rewarding.
It is rewarding, definitely. I'll tell you. It's
interesting too.
It is, and you get a real good look at the inner workings of your local governments. I mean, a ground level view.
Yeah.
You learn to work cooperatively, and I think that's really a very, very useful life lesson. You know, you've got 19 people with their own views and so on coming together, and then the group dynamics take over, and they can achieve unanimity. I think it's an interesting process, but I think most importantly, you can do good for your community. You can make a positive difference by letting the public know what's going on with their government and where needed to make changes, positive changes.
Well, Judge, it's good to have you on.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, great information. And again, ocgrandjury.org, and you can get information there. The application deadline is January 23rd, and as the judge said, you would serve from July of this year till next year.
Right.
And more rewarding opportunity for people.
Thank you.
And it only comes along once a year, right?
It does, and I certainly urge the people watching this program to consider applying. They'll like it. We have people who come back and want to serve again.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, we'll be right back.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I think